the previous videos, we mentioned about the characteristic of a good title. It should be concise, precise, specific, and providing sufficient information regarding the technical writing that you are producing. We also took a look on an example, analyzing every single components within the title in order to determine the appropriateness of the title representing the content of the paper. Also, we tried an example going through a process trying to figure out the appropriate terminologies to be used in the title for a research project. Some directions were given as a process to help you to work out an appropriate terminologies used for the title. Now, let us try to construct the title. This is the extensions of this example, and the proposed title should look something like this. It sounds like the performance of reinforced concrete beam with polystyrene as partial concrete replacement material under flexural load. Experimental and analytical studies. Now let us look into the components one by one in order to determine whether it is adequately constructed. The first term here, it will be the performance. It is related to the structural performance, which you can have some information in the methodology. The focus of the study were the load displacement response of the beam, the mechanical properties of the member, the failure mode, and then you look at the analysis. There will be evaluations in terms of the performance, efficiency, as well as the feasibility of the member. Therefore, the structural performance here is adequately represented by the word performance. Next, we look at the reinforced concrete beam. Yes, it is a beam member. The load was applied perpendicularly to its longitudinal axis. The beam was made of concrete, being reinforced by steel bars. The proper naming for this kind of beam will be the reinforced concrete beam. And then we know that there will be polystyrene within the reinforced concrete beam. Therefore, you see the words of polystyrene there. And then the functions of the polystyrene is clearly stated here as the partial concrete replacement material. This can be observed from the methodology, where you know that this polystyrene was used to partially replace the concrete in the beam. Therefore, the term partial concrete replacement is okay. The title also gives us the type of the load, which is the flexural load. That will be the load case being studied, and some informations are given also in terms of the methodology and the nature of the research. You will expect there will be experimental tests in the laboratory, and there will be analytical derivations of the equations on basis of the first principles that give you the experimental and analytical study. It is also observed that the term experimental is put in front of the analytical. Most likely, the experimental will be the major part of the research study, followed by the analytical study. Now let us do a quick check for the characteristic of a good title, whether it is grammatically correct. Does it comprise all the necessary components, especially the topic being studied? as well as the focus of the study. The topic will be the reinforced concrete beam with polystyrene as partial concrete replacement material, and the focus it will be the structural performance of the member under flexural load conducted through the experimental and analytical studies. And then we check whether it is specific enough. It seems quite specific. And does it adequately reflect the content? In this case, there is no contradictions in terms of the information given in the title as compared to the research design and its methodology. Therefore, this title looks okay. There is one more thing that I need to mention. Different people may have different preference in terms of constructing a title. There won't be a 100% title, and the title proposed here might not be the only workable titles for this kind of project. You may have also constructed a good title in a different manner from the one proposed here. You can do your own self-check in terms of the content of the research, the grammar, whether it comprises the necessary component, and whether it is specific. We try our best to construct the best title, which at least we need to be satisfied with it in terms of the coverage of the content, conciseness, and accuracy of the terminology used. The rest we will leave it to our supervisor or the examiner to comment or to query. Probably we overlooked something. If the comments are valid, we could relook into the title. In fact, this is the culture of academic communications. There will be a lot of inquiry, questioning, explanations, clarifications, comments, and recommendations. Try to make ourselves humble, open for discussions, and learn from the other people. As academic research is actually a learning process. You go through this learning process, broaden your exposure, deepen your understanding, polish your critical thinking skills in order to gain the most out of this learning process. Although a lot of evaluations was conducted based on the outcome of the research study, the things that ultimately benefit you, it will be the learning process that you have gone through. The outcome that you presented to the examiner provide indications of the learning process that you have gone through. Sometimes this learning process is difficult to be quantified. It will be based on their professional experience trying to figure out this. As far as you're concerned, you just focus on the right thing, build up your strong fundamental in doing your research, and the rest leave it to your supervisor and the examiner. And with their vast experience, under most circumstances, they should be able to gauge the learning process that you have gone through. You will expect there will be a lot of communications, such as posing the questions, asking you to further explain or clarify, challenging some of your ideas and opinions. This is inevitable, as what they are really doing is trying to gauge what you have learned throughout the process. Therefore, in conducting the research study, your mentality should not focus on the right answer, as there is no one perfect right answer. As long as you get the focus correct and you have gained most out of it, you should have no problem with your postgraduate study. With that said, you may have different ways to construct your title, which is slightly different than the one proposed here. As long as you do your self-evaluations, checking for the characteristic of a good title, until to the stage that both yourself and your supervisor are satisfied, the rest you will leave it to your examiner.